Bienvenidos a la Universidad Santo Tomás. Estamos certificados con el sello ICONTEC en operaciones bioseguras. Esto significa que todos nuestros protocolos han sido evaluados y aprobados y que las medidas implementadas en la USTA son las pertinentes para minimizar el riesgo de propagación del COVID-19 y hacer de la Universidad Santo Tomás un lugar seguro.
Temperatura normal.
Para continuar con este propósito, recuerda los principios fundamentales en la USTA. Primero, autocuidado y cooperación. Las medidas preventivas recomendadas para prevenir la propagación del COVID-19 son las siguientes: lavado frecuente de manos, distanciamiento físico, uso de mascarilla convencional o tapabocas y demás EPP, elementos de protección personal. Segundo, veracidad de la información en salud. El reporte del estado de salud debe ser de manera clara y veraz. Para esto, la Universidad Santo Tomás desarrolló el aplicativo USTA Paz, mediante el cual se realiza el reporte diario de sintomatología asociada a COVID-19 y funciona como un pasaporte de ingreso a las instalaciones. Si eres estudiante positivo o probable para COVID-19, debes enviar el reporte a coord.bienestarsalud.idh@usantotomas.edu.co. Si eres trabajador positivo o probable para COVID-19, debes enviar el reporte a coord.saludocupacional@usantotomas.edu.co. Para que nuestra universidad continúe siendo un lugar seguro, necesitamos de tu cooperación, así que ten en cuenta estas medidas. Al ingresar a los edificios encontrarás un flujo de bioseguridad. Este consiste en desinfección de calzado, reporte de sintomatología a través del aplicativo USTA Paz. El reporte del estado de salud debe ser de manera clara y veraz. Lo debes presentar al personal de vigilancia. Si tienes síntomas asociados a COVID-19, debes abstenerte de asistir a las instalaciones. Toma de temperatura corporal y lavado de manos. Durante tu permanencia en las instalaciones debes hacer uso estricto y permanente de la mascarilla convencional o tapabocas. Mantener en todo momento el distanciamiento físico superior a 1,5 metros entre compañeros. Si estando en las instalaciones se te manifiestan síntomas asociados a COVID-19, dirígete a las zonas de aislamiento preventivo dispuestas en todos los edificios y reporta en el aplicativo USTA Paz a través del botón de Alerta en sitio. Te solicitamos abstenerte de tomar alimentos en grupos y de consumirlos en los espacios que no están establecidos para este fin. Recuerda que continuamos en alternancia de actividades. El modelo de alternancia en la asistencia, así como de actividades mediadas por tecnología, favorecen el cumplimiento de medidas de distanciamiento social y espacios saludables. No bajemos la guardia. Es momento de autocuidarnos y de cuidarnos mutuamente. Contamos contigo.
¿Por qué la Universidad Santo Tomás es tu mejor opción?
Gobierno y Relaciones Internacionales tiene un enfoque social. El enfoque es global, el enfoque es muy amplio y toca cada uno de los temas que se puedan imaginar, desde la agricultura, los negocios, las relaciones internacionales de forma diplomática, los sistemas, la salud. Todos estos temas son los en los cuales se puede especializar un profesional en Gobierno y Relaciones Internacionales. He tenido la oportunidad de participar en diversos proyectos que la facultad ha abierto para nosotros los estudiantes, por ejemplo el modelo de Naciones Unidas, MONUSTA, los semilleros de investigación, el desarrollo de artículos científicos. También tuve la maravillosa oportunidad de realizar un intercambio en el año 2015, una experiencia enriquecedora, fue una experiencia satisfactoria en todos los ámbitos de mi vida.
En la Santoto puedes realizar hasta 2 semestres en Bucaramanga, Medellín, Villavicencio, Tunja y en modalidad abierta y a distancia sin costo adicional. Además, accedes a más de 200 convenios internacionales en diferentes países y aplicar al sistema de becas, auxilios y descuentos. Bienvenido a la Universidad Santo Tomás. www.usta.edu.co
Este robot se llama Kelso Usta, es una derivación de un diseño de un colega sueco que se llama Robin Freud. En esencia es un robot cuadrúpedo, a grandes rasgos es un robot móvil que nos permite realizar o desplazarse en terrenos en los que un robot convencional no podría, gracias a sus 4 extremidades. Puede funcionar para aplicaciones como búsqueda, rescate, exploración, desinfección autónoma o cualquier otra aplicación que pueda ser derivada de un robot móvil, pero con la capacidad de tener un mejor desempeño de desplazamiento. La mayoría de las partes son hechas a través de la tecnología de impresión 3D. La impresora nos permite lograr cualquier estructura, cualquier morfología de las partes sin estar limitados a tal vez lo que las herramientas convencionales nos permitan hacer. Y el cuerpo del robot está hecho, esto que vemos aquí plateado, está hecho en aluminio, en perfil estructural de aluminio, lo que esto nos permite una gran consistencia en su estructura. Pues cuenta con una batería de 5.000 mAh, eso se traduce aproximadamente en unos 40 minutos de trabajo continuo, y un computador embebido que es el que realiza todas las funciones internas de la inteligencia artificial del robot. A futuro nuestra idea es que el robot se convierta en un producto que pueda ofrecer soluciones a diferentes campos de la industria o de la investigación, implementando nuevas tecnologías como cámaras tridimensionales, como sensores que le permitan mapear su entorno, y así ser completamente autónomo justamente a través de algoritmos de inteligencia artificial y aplicando los conocimientos que se tienen en el grupo de estudio y desarrollo en robótica. Lo que queremos es justamente a través de este proyecto y todos los proyectos que realizamos en el grupo seguirnos posicionando como un referente nacional en el campo de la robótica y la inteligencia artificial.
Good morning, Colombia. Good afternoon, Almaty. Dear Dean Alberto, Professor Daniel, welcome virtually to the Santo Tomas University of Colombia. It is an honor to be with you today and to learn about Kazakhstan and the Central Asian region. I hope this will motivate our students to do research on this region and its role in the international system. As we mentioned in the previous seminar, this is the first step for an academic relationship that I hope will be of mutual benefit to our students and professors. The moderators, the professor of this session will be the Professor Angelo and Professor Nicolas Villa from the University of Santo Tomas. Thank you for all our students who follow us on social networks and follow us in this moment. And I encourage you, dear students, to participate actively and learn more every day. So thank you very much and welcome again. Professor Angelo and Nicolas.
Yeah, thank you very much, Alberto, Dean. Thank you very much, Alberto, Frigerio, Daniel, Saari, dear students from Kazakhstan, dear students from Colombia. They are joining little by little. And thank you so much for being with us. For me, it's very emotive to see students from Kazakhstan, from Colombia joining in the same space, virtual space. So welcome and thank you so much. Dear Alberto, if you want to start your speech, please. Thank you so much.
Well, first of all, thank you very much. I actually share both the words of Alberto Castillo, your dean. So we hope that this will be really the first step for a further cooperation between our university, and we'll be able to realize some important step forward in research and in exchange of students and professors, or whatever actually good might happen. And I also share the words of Professor Angelo, that actually, I mean, it's very interesting to see people from Kazakhstan and Colombia, even if virtually all together at the same time, for a common seminar. I mean, we have 11 hours of difference, but again, now it shows how now technologies help us to make this world a bit smaller and to somehow to join all together for good reason. That could be to spread the knowledge about each other, and why not to have fun. And before starting, I would like again to thank you once more Alberto, Angelo, and Nicolas for their amazing presentation that they had with us last week. And our students were very happy about it, and they provided us very great feedbacks that I shared also with your dean. And so we hope actually to also give you some good information about Kazakhstan and the Central Asian region. So let me launch the presentation. We'll have some slides. I will present some parts. Danial, my colleague Danial Saari, who is program leader of international relations and economics, and he's also actually the head of Research Center for political science. He will also propose some consideration in some slides. So we'll just alternate each other. I will share the presentation. One moment. And here we go. Okay, so basically, I repeat, we have two speakers. Me, I'm shortly present myself. I'm Alberto Frigerio. I'm the Dean of the School of Politics Law at Almaty Management University. And my colleague, Danial Saari, who is Program Leader of International Relations and Economics and Head of Political Study Center here at our school. With this presentation, we'd like to give you a brief introduction to what is the geopolitics of Kazakhstan in Central Asia, and just provide some kind of basic information that might be useful for you in order to understand a bit better about this country. But the first things we should start is with a question. What do you know about Kazakhstan? Because Kazakhstan is a kind of country which is still veiled in mystery. This is partially due to the fact that it got independence in a relatively recent period of time, so 30 years ago, but it's also due to the fact that this is a country located in a geographical area that for multiple reasons, people around the world do not study. So we know a lot about Europe, maybe the United States, we know something everywhere about Latin American people, Latin America, of course, know about it. Maybe we know something about, we know China or Japan, but Central Asia is one of those areas that we don't know almost anything. And so at first, I mean, I cannot, for a question of time, I cannot ask you directly, what do you know about Kazakhstan? But let me tell you what actually are sometimes misleading interpretation about this country and what you should not be confused with. So the first, because at times actually people have a misconception about Kazakhstan, and there are in particular three main misconceptions. So the first misconception is that Kazakhstan is somehow associated with Afghanistan. This is due to the fact that both finish with stan, that actually means state, and then people get confusion. But actually, Kazakhstan is, in terms in particular of security, stability and safety, has nothing related to Afghanistan. I mean, it's a country, Kazakhstan, in which since independence didn't experience particular act of aggression or internal conflicts. In terms of political stability, is one of the most stable countries of the region, actually probably the most stable country of the region. And even from a terroristic perspective also, as many countries in the world, it faces a terroristic threat. In particular, we've seen in the period 2012, 2013, but the proportion has nothing to do and anything related with Afghanistan, and the terroristic attacks that were committed in Kazakhstan were weakly organized. They were mainly done by lone wolves, and there was nothing that in terms of impact or number of casualties that is somehow comparable with Afghanistan. So Kazakhstan is not Afghanistan. Second issue, many people know that Kazakhstan possesses oil resources, which is correct, but they have the perception of Kazakhstan as kind of Saudi Arabia or United Arab Emirates. So they imagine this kind of desert land just with oil fields. Well, it's not exactly like this. I mean, most of the oil fields in Kazakhstan are actually close, or the title of them actually are close to the Caspian Sea. So the landscape is completely different. So of course, Kazakhstan is a producer of oil. It's an important resource for the economy of Kazakhstan. But the comparison or the similarity between Kazakhstan and Saudi Arabia seems that finish there. And the third misconception is related to a cinematographic outcome, which actually is the movie Borat. So some people watched Borat and believe that that movie actually was set in Kazakhstan, when it actually was not. Actually, the main images taken in particular from the village shown in Borat movie actually was from Romania. And I will say that 99% of the information contained in such movie has nothing to do with Kazakhstan. Borat can be viewed as a kind of funny movie. Actually, it was a sarcastic one. I think the main criticism was toward the United States, not toward Kazakhstan, to say the truth. But it doesn't tell us much really about the country, about what Kazakhstan is. So let's forget about these scenarios. Let's forget about this misleading perception about Kazakhstan, and let's try to figure out a bit better what is Kazakhstan, where is located, what are the basic information, basic features of this country, and what are its key geopolitical principles and how to analyze them. So, Danial, maybe you can intervene now.
Okay. So, hello everyone. It's a great opportunity. Well, I think this event, that can link joint efforts of young researchers, of students, and linking continents. So, what about the whole region? So, where Kazakhstan is located? I have to say that there are three different variants, for the term Central Asia, and one that refers to the Soviet period. So it was in Russian like Srednya Asia, which meant the minor Central Asia that included Uzbekistan, Turkmenistan, Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, and Kazakhstan as an economic region of a former USSR. And then later, the whole region was called within the CIS, the Commonwealth of Independent States for former USSR republics, again as Central Asia, which in Russian sounds a bit different. And then there is a UNESCO also definition, which comprises, apart from all these 5 stan countries, also Afghanistan are part of the whole Mongolia, so south to taiga of Russia. The territory were mostly inhabited by Uyghur population in China, so Xinjiang Uyghur Autonomous Region, also are Qinghai and Sichuan, Gansu regions of China. Then are north part of India, where Jammu and Kashmir, are north part of Pakistan, are under the whole territory of Afghanistan, and are the northeast part of Iran. So it's a big region. And I have to say that they're all landlocked countries. And even Uzbekistan is double landlocked countries. So in order to have an access to sea, they have to deal with other countries. So it might complicated for shipment, especially for Kazakhstan, which is oil-rich country. So that's why we're pretty much dependent on different countries within both bilateral and multilateral formats in order to have a cheaper shipment of our oil outcome.
Yeah, And if we get to some basic information about Kazakhstan in particular, some historically, it is conventionally, I mean, this is, I repeat, it's just a convention formed in 1465 with the creation of the Kazakh Khanate. So the idea is that we have at that moment the first identification of a territory and a land as specifically associated with a population, the Kazakh one, and that is kind of viewed as the basic pillar through which actually Kazakhstan was then developed. We have to consider that Kazakhstan is a population, as territory, is the 9th largest country in the world. So we are talking about a particularly big country. As Daniel mentioned, it is a landlocked country. Also, actually, it has access to the closed sea, which is the Caspian Sea. And on the Caspian Sea, actually, we have a lot of geopolitical aspects to consider, in the sense is a sea or it is a lake. And the relevant point is that this determines the borders of the countries within the Caspian Sea. And this is relevant because the Caspian Sea is full of oil and gas. And so assessing who can access to which kind of resources in the seabed of the Caspian Sea is an important issue. Right now, the question of territorial borders in the Caspian Sea is somehow frozen because they got a compromise achieved. I mean, this country in the Caspian Sea, which are Kazakhstan, Russia, Azerbaijan, Iran, and Turkmenistan, achieved a compromise solution to block right now the controversies around that issue. But is not completely solved. So there are different kind of prerogatives that time by time are raised again, and basically countries want to have the largest access to the rich oil and gas resources that are in the seabed of the Caspian Sea. So we talk about a big country, 9th largest country in the world, but with a population of 18.5 million people. So a relatively restricted population, if we compare it, I mean, if we take it in consideration to how vast is the country. And actually, most of the people in Kazakhstan live along the border. Just a few minority live actually in the center of the country, where we have mainly a lot of steppe, which is the geographical characterization of the state, and few towns or cities. From economic perspective, Kazakhstan, according to data of 2019, was the 55th country in the world for nominal GDP. Actually, Kazakhstan had in the past the objective to become in the top 50. According to the local government, they were able to get there. And then the next step was to gain within the top 30 developed countries of the world. Now they are again, you see from data, it seems they're a bit out of the top 50 again, but Kazakhstan is a really ambitious country. I mean, especially from the economic perspective, they have huge plans, and really the ambitious goal is to try to get as closer as possible in the next 10 years to the top 30 to most developed country of the world. Kazakhstan is a country rich in oil, but also rich in mineral resources. And I have to say that Kazakhstan is the #1 producer country of uranium. So actually it's a country very rich for such kind of commodities that is used, you know, for multiple reasons, but one of them is energetic resources. And I'm just briefly mentioning here, because then Daniel will explore it more, the relation with the surrounding country, but there are multiple interests in Kazakhstan, and there are multiple relations of Kazakhstan toward the countries around itself, around its borders, as well toward other countries that are the main actors in the world. So with Russia, there is a kind of historical legacy. There are a lot of relations from economic perspective, but there is also a key question related to security. For Russia, Kazakhstan is a very important geopolitical country in a geostrategic position, and so there is a security matter that is a really relevant one. With China, we have an increase and a really important trade relation. With Turkey, there is a cultural connection due to the Turkic language and somehow Turkish tradition or some kind of similarities. Singapore is viewed by Kazakhstan as kind of model of development, in particular in the area of education. And so especially around 10 years ago, 10, 15 years ago, there were several references to the educational model of development used by Singapore and how actually it could be adopted in Kazakhstan. And about Europe and United States, of course, there are economic interests, but there is also kind of link associated with the spreading of human rights, the spread of human rights and democratic principle in the country. So the Europe and United States are viewed as a kind of main point of reference from such perspective. There was again in the past a security issue from the United States perspective. This was during the period of the Afghan war in 2001, from 2001 on. But then with somehow the withdrawal of the United States, the interest from security perspective of the United States towards Central Asia somehow declined. Now we'll see with Sweden how it's going to be. So maybe the situation will change, maybe not. But let's say in particular during the Trump administration, the security issue of the United States towards Central Asia became not such a central topic as it was previously with Obama, Barack Obama, for example, or even with Bush. If we check about the recent history of Kazakhstan, so here I put just some key data. So we see 1991 is the year of independence. 1995 is when we have the transfer of all nuclear weapons that was former belonging to Soviet Union to Russia. Kazakhstan is right now one of the main countries sustaining the denuclearization in the world. Military denuclearization in the world is one of the key strategic pillars of Kazakh foreign policy, and actually is acting in such a regard pretty well. I mean, it's a country that is hosting several conferences of such topic, and is trying to promote and even developing scientists who are interested to work on such scenario. And one of the reasons why is that there is a zone of Kazakhstan, actually the area of Semipalatinsk, that was used during the Soviet past for nuclear testing, with the detrimental consequences that actually you might expect from testing nuclear weapons on a territory that actually was in its proximity. There were people living there. In 1997, the capital was moved from the south part of Kazakhstan, the city of Almaty, to a northern city, Astana. Multiple reasons, let's not discuss now, otherwise we'll never finish. In 2014, we have the formation of Asian Economic Union. So again, we have the formation of a tie between Kazakhstan, Russia, and Belarus. Actually, after it, the Eurasian Economic Union actually expanded. So we included Kyrgyzstan, Armenia. But the point is that we have a series of countries that start to have a strict and strong connection by themselves and favorable economic conditions. 2017, we have the Expo in Astana on future energy, and this shows how Kazakhstan tries or attempts to get part of what is called as the globalization perspective or the globalization process. Expo is just one of the events. I mean, maybe if some of you are like to watch cyclism, you know that there is a cyclist team, Astana, which is quite popular and quite strong in such regard. Or also Kazakhstan worked pretty well in the cinematographic industry some years ago and promoted certain movies that became quite important one at international level. So there is a kind of attempt to emerge at international level by branding the country through different means. And in 2019, the first president of Kazakhstan, Nursultan Nazarbayev, who you can see in the photo on the left, renounced to his position of president of Kazakhstan, but still maintaining other role, and probably one of the most important one is the leader of the nation. So this, we now have a new president, Tokayev, but the point is that this was a key point in the political transition. So what was the president who led Kazakhstan to independence and to the stability, or if you want on some side, to the economic development of the country from independence till 2019, somehow make a step aside, and now we have a new political activities and a new president actually governing this country. And in the same year, actually, the capital of Astana was renamed as the name of the first president as Nur Sultan. This was kind of controversial action Some people saw it as, was not so convinced that this was the right approach, considering how Astana was branded in the world and how much efforts were put in by the government of Kazakhstan to promote the city of Astana in the world. But still, this is what we received. And if we try to analyze the country from a social cultural perspective, we see that it's a place of some divergences and differences. This actually is something that is a legacy also from the past. For instance, in the past, we have the northern part of Kazakhstan was much more nomadic, while the southern part of Kazakhstan was much more sedentary, with the formation of some towns and cities in the past that were very popular, and actually they became a point of reference for the whole Central Asian region. And we see this kind of contraposition of perspective on different fields and on different regards. So there is, in some part of Kazakhstan, there is sort of conservative mentality, so much more focus on the past and on tradition, while in other part of Kazakhstan, there is a strong pressure toward innovation, toward looking at the future and what kind of possibilities this country will have. And so there is these two realities that live together within the country. At the same time, we have a nationalist perspective. So the idea to see Kazakhstan as the land of Kazakh ethnic people, but at the same time, there is also a multicultural perspective. So Kazakhstan as the land of multiple ethnic groups and as a multicultural society. Now you have to know that in Kazakhstan, it's true that around 68% of the population is Kazakh, but we have also a huge component, 18% approximately of the population, actually more close to 90%, who is Russian. And we have another 11% approximately of the population there that is multi-ethnic. So from Uzbekistan, from some people from Germany, from Ukraine, so from many, there are over 100 different ethnic groups, people from ethnic groups living in Kazakhstan. So there is this kind of contraposition between whether Kazakhstan should be primarily focused of Kazakh people and the development of the country as a kind of nationalist, through a nationalist perspective, or Kazakhstan should develop according to a multicultural society and kind of really open and internationalized center in the framework of Central Asia. And then there is a difference between the urban and periphery that, if I remind well the presentation of last week from our colleagues from Colombia, is something that resembles the situation that we have there in Colombia. So we have, when people ask how is Kazakhstan, is very difficult to answer, because one thing, if we are talking about Astana or Nur Sultan, if you want, which is the image of power, the center of the political activity. One thing, if we talk about Almaty, which is the international city, the city of education, the soul of Kazakhstan. One thing, if we talk about Shymkent, which is the city of tradition, more conservative. And these are the three main cities of Kazakhstan. But then also we have a lot of villages in which the situation is much more different. The lifestyle is much more different from the one that we can find in these three cities. The socioeconomic gap is huge. Okay, and is almost as we are referring to a different country. So Kazakhstan, as you see, is really a complex country, is complex state with huge potential, but also with a lot of divergences inside its culture, inside its society, and inside its even urban organization and urban structure. So please, Danial.
Okay. So I will talk about the foreign policy goals of Kazakhstan. We have to say that since 1991, the year of independence, 130 countries recognized Kazakhstan. And Kazakhstan is a member of major international organizations such as United Nations, or even OSCE, and also Organization of Islamic Cooperation. And also it's a part of regional organizations like Shanghai Cooperation Organization, are also part of Eurasian Economic Union. And we have to say that the main goal of the foreign policy of Kazakhstan is to establish friendly relationships with the neighbors. And the thing is that the foreign policy of Kazakhstan is a multi-vector. That means that we are not oriented on one single power and would have friendly relationships with that power, but we are focused on many, and that somehow explains our position. We have one vector as United States of America, considering it as one of the superpowers. Russia, with which we have historical experience, and we have roots of neighborhood historically. And then is China, which is also a neighbor and one of our major powers in the world. And it's quite becoming active in recent period economically. And then the other part is European Union, where mostly the key partners are Great Britain. Great Britain is now not a part of European Union, but still is in Europe continentally. Germany and France. And also the last part is Islamic world. But I have to say that the region, Kazakhstan, is not so much focused on the region itself. It was also, it resembles well the foreign policy of Russia, which was in the beginning very much focused on the West, and was less thinking about the former countries of USSR. And Kazakhstan was also focused more on the West, and that was explained by the idea of attracting investments into the economy. Alberto has mentioned about non-nuclear proliferation agenda, but that was also one of the conditions for Kazakhstan to be recognized. And then, of course, those nuclear warheads were transferred to Russia, and that was also part of the that condition. And we have to say that Kazakhstan, becoming a member of OSCE in 1992, and then became the chairman of that organization in 2010. And one of the achievements of this chairmanship that there was a conduction of the summit in the year 2011, and OSCE found Kazakhstan as a key player, well, for the Afghan issue, and we have to also say that there were quite important Astana meetings, which were in the year of Kazakhstan being the non-permanent member of Security Council of United Nations in the year 2017. Of course, that experience wasn't so much successful, but still Kazakhstan wants to become a certain mediator in relationships between conflicting sides, which I think is a good thing. And I have to say that the foreign policy of Kazakhstan is mainly affected by relationships, well, with Russia. And if there are any frictions, well, between Russia and the West, I may say that that somehow affects Kazakhstan as well. But still, even if Russia is in bad relationships with the West, Kazakhstan tries to keep neutrality. So there is no any case when Kazakhstan would express any negative references, well, to towards any our partners, both in within bilateral and multilateral formats. So as I have mentioned, that's attraction of investments is one of the key factors for establishing, well, relationships with new countries. Also protection, well, of citizens of the country, and having, creating a new image, yes, not to be so much linked with Borat image, yes, and the foreign political, I would say, institution as the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Kazakhstan is conducting, well, is trying to conduct different projects. And for example, there is Kazakh aid, through which Kazakhstan is trying to support lesser developed countries. For example, there were grants for 1,000 students from Afghanistan to study for free in Kazakhstan, which I think is a good achievement for Kazakhstan. I think, for this part, it's yes. Speaking about, well, economic ties of Kazakhstan within the CIS, as Alberto has mentioned, that there was Eurasian Economic Union, and it started from the year 2010, when there was Russia, Belarus, and Kazakhstan created the customs union first as one of the steps, well, to create a bigger union, Eurasian Union. It was quite an ambitious goal to create such a union. So it was an idea to create something similar to the European Union. So, and there were quite many ideas that there would be introduced a common even currency. But I would say that there are both those who are for and against. And I would say that Kazakhstan is not really that much successful in this union, and there are quite a strong lobby now in Kazakhstan that is trying to withdraw Kazakhstan from this union. As big, I would say, partners, Russia and China, and this is all both for the transportation of oil, yes, with both these countries. They're both interested in oil, and Kazakhstan tries to enjoy, well, from those projects that are implemented, yes, in the region. For example, One Belt and One Road from China, which Kazakhstan can take from many sites, including even transit. We have quite good relationships, I would say, with neighbors, but they're not really, these relationships are not really sustainable, because all the countries in the region, Uzbekistan, Kyrgyzstan, Tajikistan, and Turkmenistan, are pretty much focused on other countries. They are focused on either European countries or United States of America, but not so much at the region, even though there are no conflicts between the countries. I would say that Kazakhstan quite successful, yes, quite successful in the CIS, is a member of the Commonwealth Security Organization. So, and it's also quite active as a mediator, well, in relationships between the countries. For example, Kazakhstan tried to be quite active in Nagorno-Karabakh case, even though it was not heard much. As I have mentioned, that Kazakhstan is pretty much focused on having good impacts from One Belt and One Road, and also there is a railway corridor, China, Kazakhstan, Turkmenistan, and Iran, which is a big, I would say, cargo delivery from East China to Persian Gulf. And that's really, I would say, economically quite successful solution, yes, for the region, and it can solve quite many issues. If you have questions,
okay.
I would be happy to answer.
Yeah, I think we are done with our presentation.
Well, yes, I have a question. So first of all, thank you, Daniel. Thank you, Alberto. It was quite interesting, very interesting to understand some more issues about Kazakhstan. I have a question related of your neighbors. How are your relations with Kyrgyzstan and Turkmenistan? Because it seems that they are some problematic countries, especially Turkmenistan, right?
Speaking about Turkmenistan, I have to say that it is specific, and its foreign policy is rather specific, and its internal policy is rather specific, especially at the time of the first president of Turkmenistan, Sapar Murat Niyazov. The country was very, very closed. And with a new president, Gurbanguly Berdimuhamedov, the situation, are slightly changed. So it became softer, the regime. And we can just prove that by the successful Caspian Sea conference that solved the issue related between the countries that are washed by Caspian Sea. Yes, but still there are not so many relationships with this country. And I hope that they will improve those relationships. Speaking about Kyrgyzstan, which is a quite specific country in a way that it is a bit different from all the other countries. It is the only parliamentary republic in Central Asia, which is considered by even the West as the Freedom Island in the region, and there were quite many. If we had, for example, Nazarbayev for almost 30 years, and they had already 5 presidents. So they were even
and 2 revolutions.
Yeah, 2 revolutions, flower color revolutions, and yes, and Kazakhstan tried also to be was quite reluctant in a way, having close cooperation, and they didn't want those, I would say, political performances would be repeated in Kazakhstan. So the regime was quite intensified here. We have to say that, for example, we have a dominant party system. So we have the major party, Nurotan, which resembles quite a lot the Communist Party during the Soviet Union, when nominally, it was considered as a democratic regime, but still people had to choose between one, so they had no choices. And in Kyrgyzstan, in comparison with our country, they have quite many different international NGOs. So they have quite a big number, more than 11,000 ones, and they have quite many political parties, which are quite strong in the country.
Yeah, I will just add the only issue maybe in future perspective is related to the water flows. Right now is not yet a hotspot, I will say, But the perspective is that the water management might become more and more relevant in the next year. We already, now is a topic under analysis in the academia. So we are anticipating that that might be a matter of a security issue matter. And it might involve not only Kazakhstan, but Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, and Kyrgyzstan. I mean, all three countries. So it's something that needs to be monitored and check how the situation will evolve.
I can also add about, well, water management. Well, since I have just recently published a research about, well, water, and I have to say that it's a key, well, factor in relationships in the region, and in water management we are pretty much dependent on China. If during the Soviet Union, well, Soviet Union was a strong country, and China was negotiating and was considering the position of USSR as a strong partner. But now this topic is not an agenda, well, on multilateral negotiations, and China prefers, well, to solve this issue within bilateral negotiations. And we have to say that there are 13 rivers which are transborder rivers, and mostly coming from China, and they're still were not so much successful in these regards. And I believe that the situation will slowly be improved.
Okay, so thank you very much. I think that Christian has a question. Christian Mendoza.
Okay, can you hear me? Yes, I think so. I'm having some internet issues. Well, my question is the following one. I know that if a country longs for becoming an open society, integrated to the international society, fully integrated, this path must be tread carefully. So I can see a parallel between Colombia and Kazakhstan in so much as we both have powerful neighbors. We both have a global power in our neighborhood, so to speak. So my question is, although our countries want to remain neutral or want to strive for neutrality in our regions, my question is, isn't it impossible to strive for better relationships with, or relations with those around us? I mean, even though Kazakhstan tries to maintain like a neutral position, isn't it impossible to have better relations with China and Russia? And how does that affect the perception or the country's stance towards, for example, human rights abuse, or towards climate policies, as you were speaking about water a few minutes ago? So that is my question. How does the position, the geographic position, changes the position towards these hot topics?
Okay, I might briefly answer, and then maybe Daniel also will give his perspective. Well, definitely Kazakhstan is in a kind of particular geographic position. I mean, to have in the north Russia and on the east side China, you have these two giants close to you, and it's kind of, it has inevitably an impact on your foreign policy. Nevertheless, and mainly even taking consideration such kind of issue and such kind of geographical position, Kazakhstan tried specifically to develop what Daniel called the multivectorial policy. So the idea is that, okay, we know where we are. We know that we have some legacy with Russia that we cannot break. But we are also aware that there is China now that is a huge potential economic partner, and we want to explore that direction. We don't want necessarily that this will negatively affect our relation with the United States and Europe, if this might provide us possibility of innovation and development. So the perspective is that despite the geographic position that of course somehow implicitly or even explicitly affect the policy and the policy negotiation of Kazakhstan, the idea is to gain as many benefits as possible from as many partners as possible. And how this situation affects the human rights issue? Well, I would say depends, because this is again part of this multivectorial policy. So, for instance, in the question of climate change perspective, Kazakhstan is quite pretty oriented toward the sustainable development goals, at least as part of their policy. Then in terms of implementation, of course, there are some limits that we have to consider and we can discuss about them. But the fact that a country like Kazakhstan that is rich on oil organize an expo on future energies, it was kind of interesting perspective about how this country is, has an ambition to be part of this current wave of green countries that want somehow to provide beneficial change so that the world will become more sustainable. And from the sides of human rights, of course, we have the process is not yet complete. Probably much more steps needs to be done. In particular, I will say in the response toward political criticism. So in this regard, I think that the country could actually further improve its policy. But on the other side, actually a lot of reference were taken. And in terms, for example, of religious freedom, there are quite interesting openings from society. So here you can see easily people that Christian, Muslim, and Jewish people just dining together without any kind of particular issues or any kind of particular problems to share the same table. So there are, of course, some aspects that still needs definitely to be solved. And so there are huge steps of intervention in multiple areas. Political rights, and in particular multi-partyism is also another issue that probably need further developments. But overall, the idea, as I repeat, is to try to get as many benefits as possible from as many partners as possible. I mean, this was the policy up to now. Maybe Daniel, do you want to?
Yes, I would agree strongly with Alberto. Well, if we speak about people or the country position, so it will be a different response. So speaking about people, we should know that people of the region of Kazakhstan, they're coming from the USSR, which was mostly European-centered. So probably you would think that we are in Asia and we are stereotypically Asiatic, yes, but you won't find quite a big difference between people here, people in Latin America, or people in Europe. And relationships still between the neighbors are pretty good. Well, and of course there are quite many experts who try to raise this issue of better cooperation between the countries in the region, and still I would say that the speed is very slow towards the cooperation, kind of strategic cooperation between the countries, and it's politically and economically beneficial for our countries to have cooperation with both Russia and China, which I think quite a good trend, and it was historically so that the ruling elites in Kazakhstan, even in Kazakh, there was Ablai Khan, who was known for good relationships between Russia and China. So he enjoyed good relationships from both and still Kazakhstan keeping this policy, so the parity and balancing its policy. And I think, well, our geopolitical situation and our geographical position, that we are at the threshold of Europe and Asia, we are somehow connecting these two continents, both culturally and economically, since there was a Silk Road period from ancient times, and nowadays we have a new Silk Road period, which I think for Kazakhstan is a good chance, well, to get profit.
Okay, thank you. Professor Angelo had to leave. Is it okay if we have one more question? I would like to take the opportunity. Time is almost running out, but perhaps just one more question, if it's okay with our guests. I first thank you for that very, very interesting lecture and stimulating as well. I have, we've all heard of soft power, but perhaps we should also create a new theory called soft vulnerability, because I noticed that Borat was still an issue, because it's in the presentation, and of course, we're from Colombia, or part of our guests and listeners and students are from Colombia, and we're used to this negative image sometimes, in media and so on. And I remember that when Borat came out, the Kazakh government took out a page in the New York Times saying, "Listen, this has nothing to do with Kazakhstan." But because I see it in the presentation today, I wonder, is it still an issue? Like, is Borat really an issue in Kazakhstan? And
they reacted in a smart way this time. I mean, at first, after the first Borat came out, at first they were very nervous and they criticized it. Then they start to realize, and the word this is coming from the Kazakh ambassador in London, that Borat put Kazakhstan on the map. So technically speaking, people didn't know about Kazakhstan. Now they have a distorted image, but they start to know about Kazakhstan. So maybe we can get something good from that. And now with the second Borat, this reacted smartly. So at population level, some people were again concerned and they were criticizing and say boycott Borat. But at official level, they organize a campaign where they show different, very beautiful places of Kazakhstan with people using the sentence used by Borat in his movie. Very beautiful. Okay, so this time they took it. Okay, they recognize that it's something that can be exploited to get good outcomes, increase popularity of Kazakhstan, get branding, and they use it in their touristic campaign. So there is this amazing video. I would like to put in the presentation. Then I actually couldn't find it anymore. But if you search on internet, you'll see that there's a video organized by the Ministry of, I think, Tourism, but I don't remember which one exactly, by Kazakhstan. And they show natural locations, cities, and with different beautiful landscape. And every time a different person just repeating the same sentence used by Borat. So they this time they got the opportunity to promote the country and reverse actually the effect. So now they are making joke of Borat, actually.
Yes, I would agree with Alberta. Well, there were two Borats. Mm-hmm. So the first Borat and the second one. So people were taking that very sensitively. So they were quite sensitive when there was the first Borat shown, and they took it, very personally and painfully. And still, there were quite many people who recognized that it was quite a good stuff because the country could be recognized. And nowadays, I would say that after the second one, people do not take it so seriously. For the first weeks when the movie was shown, there were some comments in social media, and that's it. So nobody just remembers that. And still, people know that the whole movie is not about Kazakhstan, but it's about US. Yeah. So and it has nothing truly to do with Kazakhstan. Well, and me personally, I take it quite positively.
I mean, in the end, actually, was the best for free promotion marketing campaign they could get. I mean, as a
Certainly, yes.
even if actually, I mean, I also understand the population that got pissed off in the sense that, technically speaking, they could invent the fake name of the country without making reference to a real one. But still.
Yeah, which I think he did in another movie. He just invented the
Yeah.
country, which is
Yeah.
better move, smarter move. Okay, well, I guess then there's nothing left but thanking our guests, Alberto and Danial, for taking the time to give this lecture, for teaching us about Kazakhstan, which is still a bit an exotic nation, certainly here in Colombia. And well, yeah, just thanks a ton. It was very, very interesting and enlightening.
Okay, thank you very much for the
much
opportunity.
for such
And,
opportunity.
we hope again that we'll have additional opportunities to share our ideas with you and with your students.
Well,
Yes, we
thanks a
would like
ton.
to
Thanks a
continue
ton.
in cooperation.
Hopefully, yes. Hopefully, it's just the first of many lectures.
Thank you.
All right, guys, take care.
Okay.
And thanks to our students, and of course here and in the Almaty Management University.
Thank you very much.
Take care. Bye.
Yes, goodbye. Goodbye, everyone.
Goodbye.
I have a question, sorry.
Silencio.
la generación del cambio.
Y estamos transformando el país.